In one of my earlier videos, I covered the Battle of Lookout Mountain, which was a part of the larger battle for the city of Chattanooga on the border between Tennessee and Georgia. That was late in 1863. In 1864, there were really two big shows that were going on. One, you can kind of almost think of like two heavyweight prize fights. One of the heavyweight matches was between Lee and Grant up around the DC Richmond area, and the other one took place between Chattanooga and Atlanta, between William Tecumseh Sherman for the Union and Joseph Johnston for the Confederacy. And just in short, the way that it worked was Sherman was working his way south, Johnston was defending, and Sherman kept outflanking Johnston. So he would outflank, Johnston would fall back. He would outflank, Johnston would fall back. Well, what ended up happening was that Sherman's supply lines that he had to defend were getting really strung out. And as he approached Atlanta, he wanted to just ball up his fist and deliver a knockout blow that was going to allow him to kind of punch his way into Atlanta. But defending the path to Atlanta was this high ground known as Kennesaw Mountain. And that's where I am today. Now, before we get down to the angle, I did want to show this artillery position. These are two 12-pound howitzers, and I don't know if it was these exact ones, but there were two, at least like it, that were set up here by the Confederates prior to the battle. And for a week, the Union just pounded the lines with artillery, but Cheatham ordered these guys not to fire back and to remain camouflaged. And then on the day of the battle, or the opening of the battle on the 27th, they had these things loaded up with canister or grape shot. And I guess whenever the Union lines got up here to this position, they unloaded on them. And imagine this being turned into just a giant shotgun. That must have just been awful, especially on the receiving end, but seeing it happen must have been impactful as well. Now, the battlefield here at Kennesaw Mountain is huge. As a matter of fact, the Union assault took place over an 8-mile front. So there's no way I'm going to be able to cover the entire battle here in this video. Where I'm at now is the spot where the main Union thrust took place at an area called Cheatham's Hill. More specifically, we're going to be looking at a real violent spot along that line called the Dead Angle. Now, before we get to the story of the Dead Angle, I did want to make mention of something. The Confederates knew that the Union were going to be attacking here along the Kennesaw Mountain and the areas surrounding. So Confederate engineers and work crews started digging earthworks and trenches here in Kennesaw Mountain a few days before the Army fell back to this position on June 19th. So over that period of time, they improved the defenses even more, and you can see these trenches. Now, in order to preserve the trenches, you're not supposed to get like down in them. So I'm going to respect that. But there are miles and miles of these things that were built to defend against the Union attack. We're going to go to a spot where we can get a little bit better look at these defenses. Now, I'm at a section where we can really see these Confederate trenches and earthworks well. The people that are in charge of this area have cut a trail right through the earthworks, so we can kind of see a cross-section of what it would have looked like for the Confederates. So the Confederates, as I mentioned, dug these trenches and built up these earthen mounds that they could hide behind, in preparation for the attacking Union troops. So automatically they've got a defensive position set up that is going to be more advantageous for them. On top of that, they cut down these logs and put them up on braces and set them up on top of these earthworks that would allow them to shoot towards the Union lines while offering protection for, their upper body and their heads. Okay, so you have the Confederates. They're lined up along here. They've got the parapets on top of the earthworks. And then on top of that, on this side where the Union would be advancing from, they had gone through and had sharpened thousands of saplings and embedded them in the ground pointed towards where the Union would be attacking from. There was an Arkansas soldier that wrote home that a rabbit would have trouble making it uphill through all of these sharpened sticks that they had planted. And this is what the Union is going to be making a frontal assault against. Now that we've got a little bit better idea of the Confederate defenses here at Cheatham Hill, I wanted to come back to this spot. This is what became known as the Dead Angle. And if you were to look at this from above, you can kind of see it here. You can see how the Confederate defensive line kind of comes down through here, and then it makes a sharp turn, almost a 90-degree turn, and then cuts back. And then kind of follows this edge around. Well, this forms an angle in the Confederate lines that really pokes out further than any of the other lines. And this is where General Cheatham's Confederates would have been entrenched, along with about 8,000 others along the line, in the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain. I'm probably about 15 to 20 yards down from the Confederate line right now. So right in here is where the Confederates were at the angle. And the Union would have been making their frontal assault from right down here. Now, I've heard a few explanations as to why this is called the Dead Angle. One is because there were so many who were killed here. But another reason that I've heard it called the Dead Angle is that this hill kind of breaks right about here, and there's this dead area where the Confederates couldn't shoot. Now, this field below me would have been about 3 times as large during the attack. We're looking at the middle third right now, so there would have been a third equal size over to our left and a third equal size over to our right. And the Union just made a full frontal assault across that open ground, right up here to that fortified position. So on June 27th of 1864, the Union, across an 8-mile front, launched their attack against the Confederate lines here at the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain. And right here at the Dead Angle, there was a brigade colonel by the name of Daniel McCook that was in charge right here in this area. Right before the battle took off, he was a fan of poetry. He quoted a line from Horatius's speech, which says, "Then outspoke brave Horatius, the captain of the gate, every man upon the earth death cometh soon or late. And how can man die better than facing fearful odds from the ashes of his fathers and the temple of the gods?" And almost as if on cue, the assault started right up this mountain, or right up this hill, towards the Confederate lines. McCook made it all the way to the Confederate trenches under this hail of bullets that's coming down, just withering fire. He makes it all the way up to the trenches, demands their surrender, and then the Confederates responded as you would expect them to. They shot him, and he ended up dying just a short time later. Wow. Now, as one might expect, the Union full frontal attack failed to dislodge the Confederates from their trenches, and we have some of the ugliest fighting here that you can even imagine during the Civil War. So the Union ended up falling back right here to kind of this dead area where the Confederate fire couldn't reach them. Now, it may be hard to tell from the video. I am 30 yards away from the Confederate line. Right here is where the Union troops were, and they fought back and forth over this position for 6 days. 6 days. They slugged it out right here within 30 yards of each other. And if you take a look at this, the Union had this crazy idea in the middle of all of this to get cups and spoons and whatever they could and start digging a tunnel underneath the Confederate line, with the idea that they would go underneath it, plant explosives, and blow a hole in the Confederate trenches. That was set to happen on July the 4th, which would have been appropriate, I guess. But it never happened, because on July the 2nd, the Confederates ended up withdrawing after Sherman had outflanked them. But my gosh, what a crazy story. 6 days. Right now what we're looking at is another set of Confederate earthworks very close to the dead angle, maybe 75 to 100 yards. And right here, within feet of the Confederate lines, is the final resting place of a Union soldier. His body wasn't discovered here until 1938. Many of the Union dead were relocated to Marietta National Cemetery, which isn't far from here. But this unknown soldier remains right in the exact same spot where he fell. Now, I mentioned Colonel Daniel McCook coming up on the earthworks here of the Confederates and then being shot. They have a marker here that shows the exact place, approximately the exact place, I guess you could say, where Daniel McCook fell after leading an 1,800-man brigade up this hill. Brave, crazy, I don't know. That's debatable. It ended up not working. Like I said, Sherman ended up seeing that the full frontal assault wasn't going to work, and decided to go and outflank them anyway. Well, whenever the Confederates pulled out after the flanking maneuver from Sherman, which is probably what he should have done in the first place, well, that opened up the gates to the deep South city of Atlanta. That was the last time, right here at Kennesaw Mountain, that was the last time that Sherman ever did a full frontal assault like that. From here on out, he really shifted his tactics and started looking at destroying the resources of the South rather than doing any more of these full frontal assaults. All right, well, that was the dead angle at Cheatham's Hill, right here at Kennesaw Mountain. All right, off to the next place.